All right, I think it's time for us to get started. So again, thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. We're going to show off TidyUp, one of our new tools for Canvas. And my name is Mike Zackerson. I'm CEO and co-founder of Cidi Labs. And as a quick reminder, we are a company that provides products that help course designers and the instructional design community improve their experience with Canvas and be more productive with Canvas in order for you to provide a better experience for your students. We offer Design Plus, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and last year added to Design Plus 3 new products: YouDoIt Cloud, ReadyGo, and TidyUp. And TidyUp is the subject of today's presentation. We will, as a reminder, we do have some upcoming webinars in March, April, and May, where we will cover each of the additional tools that I just mentioned. So please check that out, and we encourage you to register for those if you want to learn more about those products. For today, I'm joined by Christopher Phillips from Utah State University. Christopher was instrumental in conceiving of the TidyUp product. This is a product that was built in-house by Utah State University, and then we worked with them to commercialize it and put it in the cloud and to wrap it with a SaaS delivery model and services. So we're excited to have Christopher here to talk a little bit about the background of the tool. And then also with us is Anna Sterling from MSJC. She has been using the tool for some time and is going to give you a user's perspective of how to use it and some of the things it can do and some of the benefits that they've experienced with the tools. So with that introduction, let me just quickly address how we're going to deal with questions and answers today. Please use the Q&A tool. You should all see a little Q&A tool at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you have questions along the way, please log them there, and we'll have plenty of time at the end to cover those questions. We'll go through those questions at the end. The group is small enough at the end that we could probably open up the microphones. If anyone wants to raise a hand and verbally ask a question, feel free to do that at the end as well, if you want to handle the questions that way instead. So we'll be monitoring the question queue and the chat queue. If there's any questions that come up, feel free to ask those there. The content itself, it should only take 20 to 30 minutes probably for the presentation. And like I said, we'll stick around to answer questions as long as we need to at the end. So with that, I will turn it over to Christopher Phillips.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate that. Excited to talk a little bit about TidyUp today and how it came to be. The product first arose from a problem that our Disability Resource Center was experiencing. That every semester they would get a list of students who needed accommodations in courses, and they would have a list of courses, but then they would go to a Canvas course. And from that Canvas course, they would look at the files section of the course. There would often be hundreds of files, and there was no way to know which of those files were actually in use versus which ones were legacy content or had been held over from semesters previous. And the only way to really tell was to go through page by page or quiz by quiz and to kind of look at content that way. So they often ended up doing a lot more work than they needed to. So the first intent of the tool was just to help us identify if a file was in use or not. And we have a crack developer here that helped us to build the first version of that. Ludwig Tiogbe was his name. But as we built that and made it available to our Disability Resource Center, we shared it to a couple of other folks, and it was fascinating how much interest and excitement even there was from our instructional designers and then from faculty in general. That we've been using Canvas since 2010, one of the earlier customers, before that Blackboard, and we had files from 10 and even 15 years ago that were still in courses being taught today. And so we pulled a little bit of data, and I'll show some of that in a little bit, to try to get a sense of how many of the files in a course were actually in use. And Mike, if you just want to click next real quick. Oh, and there's a, okay, so we basically found out that there was, you're good. actually go to the third slide, if you could, one more slide forward, then we'll go back if that's okay. Thank you. That as we looked at this, this is back in fall 2017 that we first started. We have a great data wrangler here for Canvas data, and she was able to pull a report of all of our files, over 200,000, I think, and then how many links there were to those files, and only 25% of the files across all of our Canvas courses were actually being used. And so that's 75% of those files that were just cluttering up the file section and making it a little bit more difficult. Even more problematic, a number of instructors were making their file section invisible to teachers, or to their students. And so we had things like old quiz answers, test answers that were still in the files bank, or past syllabi. Just a really difficult experience for students to use, but even for faculty to get in and organize their files. And so we started using TidyUp, putting it out there as our courses. You'll get a great demo of how it works in just a minute, but we'll just share the happy side of that story. It's still not great, I guess, but in the couple of years since then, usually that number would go, there would be more and more unused files over time. But with TidyUp, we've been able to get that to where 40% of our files are now unused. We've still got a long ways to go, but we're making progress. The other kind of indicator that we've enjoyed looking at, if you go back one slide now. So again, as we look at fall 2017, at that point, we just took the total number of content items and divided them by the number of courses we had, and there were 143 content items per course. And now you can see, again, using TidyUp, we've been able to get that down to about 119, which is great to see it decrease, but normally year to year, that number keeps going up and up and up. And so it's been great to have it at least level off and start to go down. We've still got room to go, but it's making our courses just a lot more usable, a lot easier for faculty to organize and kind of know what's being used in a course, but then also for students to get in and find what they need. From the files that we first started, we also realized that there tend to be extra folders in courses often, and extra pages as well. Sometimes a course will get duplicated and there'll be 2 of every page. And so TidyUp expanded kind of into addressing those areas, and you'll get to see how that works in a little bit. But that's kind of how TidyUp started here at Utah State. It has been just delightful and fun to be able to share this. So many faculty that we share this with say, oh, I've always wanted to be able to do this. And maybe it's something Canvas will do it someday in the future, but we've tried to kind of twist that arm without any luck to date. And so we're grateful to have TidyUp in the meantime that'll help us clear out our files and keep things nice and clean. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Anna. Thank you.
Great. So I'm just going to share my screen now, so you all are going to get to see TidyUp in action. So as Mike said earlier, I'm the Associate Dean. That's a new title for me, so I get a little difficult for me to say that. Associate Dean of Distance Education and Professional Development at Mount San Jacinto College. And so for us, we really have used the Design Plus tools to our advantage for a ton of the work that we're doing with our distance ed courses. Our distance ed courses are about 30% of our overall sections that are offered at our institution. And so we really wanted to make sure that our students were having the best experience and the most opportunities for success in our distance ed courses. And so we very first started using the Design Plus tools probably, I think, in 2017. And like I said, we've had a lot of success with the various templates that we've created for faculty to use, using some of the existing templates that were there and really taking advantage of those tools. And so one of the things that we also found, as Christopher was mentioning earlier, is that faculty had a lot of stuff in their courses. And so as they were going back and they were trying to use Design Plus to enhance different things in their courses, they were having difficulty finding things. They were having difficulty knowing which one was the current version, what was the last version they used, which one should they be updating, and those kinds of things. And so when we found out about TidyUp, we were ecstatic. We were like, oh, this is going to help us a ton with what we're already doing in conjunction with our design tools. And then the other piece of that also is tied back to, again, what Christopher was mentioning as the accessibility component. Our we are very much dedicated to making sure that all of the materials that we provide to our students in our distance ed courses are fully accessible. And so same thing, we were running into courses where faculty had files from 10 years ago when they started on Blackboard and before they were Canvas and all of those. You kind of hear that same story over and over from institutions. And so we actually also are working with, in the California Community College system, we have a course design rubric that we use, which if you're familiar with like Quality Matters or something of that nature, similar idea. And one of the pieces in that, or one of the sections in that rubric is all tied to accessibility. And so we've been able to leverage this tool TidyUp as well as the YouDoIt tool in conjunction with our review process to help faculty slim down the different pieces of their course that they need to make sure are fully accessible. And so today I'm going to just walk you through TidyUp, and again, if you have questions, put those in the Q&A and we'll make sure we get those answered for you. So I'm actually going to start off just in this course. This is a demo course, it's not live, so you're not going to see anything, you know, too impressive in here, but just going to show you all the way from the very beginning. So once TidyUp is installed at your institution, or if you're the one doing that, this is how faculty would see it in their courses. So they would start off by going into settings to actually enable TidyUp from the navigation menu. And once they enable that, you know, it'll show up on the course navigation over here, of course, only in the faculty screen. The students don't see that. And then they can actually go in and scan their course. And so it'll take a moment to scan because, again, remember, it's going to scan for all files, all content pages, all assignments, everything in my course. It's going to scan those and categorize them. And so that we'll be able to see them in different ways to be able to tidy up our courses, right? And so again, what we found is that, especially these days, it's very easy to become, you know, the term that I affectionately use, a digital hoarder, right? We save files and we just have all of these files sitting in our files area. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I had all of those files. So this tool is really going to help you kind of look through and be like, ooh, do I really need all of these files? So you can see once the course, the scan is complete of your course, it's going to come to this first area. And you'll see here it gives you these three different sections, the file section, the folder section, and your Canvas content section. So I'm going to start off in files, and you'll see here it's going to give me a list of all of the files that are in the files area of my class. And then you have the ability to actually sort and filter and start working with these files here in different ways. So first off, you'll see over on the right-hand side here, it says file type and all is selected. So if you're looking for a specific type of file or you want to work with certain things, like for us, images always is a big one, right? There's a ton of images in courses. You can narrow it down to just the images. And then that's going to be able for you, you'll be able to see all of the images that exist in your course, and you can kind of just work with those files first. Or if you want to look, maybe you want to focus on just things that are not your standard kinds of files, like images, PDF, Word documents. Maybe you want to see if there's any other kind of files in your files area, you can limit to those. So I'm going to go back to my images really quick here. And then you'll see that now I'm just working with my images, and that over here on the side, I see another filter where it says show unused files. So I can actually choose to see just the files that are in use in my course, or just the files that are not in use in my course, or all of my files, right? So this is right now all of the image files that exist in this course. And you can see that it's going to show me what the image file name is. And if I hover over that, I'm going to get a little preview of that image. And then it's going to tell me where that image is being used in my course, if it's being used, when the last time that image was updated or adjusted in any way, the size of it, and then you'll see I have some options over here. So right now you'll see like this item or this image, excuse me, is not being used, right? It's blank in this area. And so I can actually delete this right from here if I know that I don't need that. But what if I'm like, I might need that, right? I don't know yet. So you'll see, like, I have these two files. They have the exact same name. And obviously I'm using this one in a lot of places, but this one I'm not using. So this one, I'm like, oh, I can probably delete that. And again, I can verify that if I go to my unused files. Yep, it's not used anywhere. I don't need it. And I can go ahead and click on delete. And it's saying, hey, are you sure? And then you can say, yes, I'm sure, delete it. And now it's gone. And I didn't have to go find it in my files area. I didn't have to go search for it. It was right here, easy for me to see and easy for me to work with. So this is really handy because, again, you can do the same kind of thing with folders, right? So you can come over into your folders area and you can see all of the folders that exist in your file section, or you can just see empty folders, because sometimes you move stuff around or you create a folder that you think you're going to use and then you don't need it. So now you can actually see any empty folders that you have, and if you don't need them, you can delete them, right? And again, straight from here, click on it. Make sure you want to delete it. You can always cancel at this point. Be like, I just need to hold on to it for a little bit longer. Just maybe. I might want to put something in there, right? And then over in our Canvas content section, this is where you're going to see all of your pages, all of your discussions, quizzes, assignments, all of those Canvas content items. And then here again, you've got a lot of different options to work with when you're trying to see your different items and work with them. So the first one is you can look at items that are just published or items that are unpublished. You can look at items that are in modules, not in modules, have content, don't have content, right? So you have a lot of different filter options here. And then when you come down, you'll actually see those are represented down here next to each item. So here's my, page. And then it tells me if it's published, if it's in a module, and if it has content or not. And then the other kind of cool thing that's very handy here is that you can sort with this way as well. So if you want to say, I just want to move I want to see everything, but say I just want to move the things that don't have content to the top because I want to look at them first, I can do that as well, right? And then what's great is, so see here, I have these 3 pages. They all have the same name, but like one has -2, one has -3. These are probably pages that I've copied multiple times, right? And like when Christopher was mentioning earlier, when you copy a course and then you get these like duplicates and triplicates of the same page, right? So now I can see all of those pages. I can see if they're being used. I can see if they're published, if they have content in them, if they're not. And I can say, oh, you know what? I'm not sure. I want to verify that this page is actually not in use, or it's actually blank, or whatever you're looking for, right? You can actually just click on the name of the page or the item, and it's going to take you to that item in your course. And then you can review it and see whatever information is there. Maybe you want to publish it, or maybe you want to delete it, whatever. You can do all of that now that you're on this page. And then once you're done, you can close that and come back into your TidyUp. Now, it's important to note that if you do make changes on one of those pages that you've opened from here, you would have to rescan your course up here at the top to see that reflected in the information that's listed here, because this is from my previous scan, okay? So it's not going to immediately reflect, like if I had published this page and then came back to this page, it's not going to now show that it's published. I would have to rescan my course to see that. Just want to make sure that everybody understands that piece. But the other cool thing is I can actually rename the pages from here as well. So maybe I decide that blank page 2 is really important to me, but I want to rename it so that it doesn't say that, right? I can actually click on that little pencil icon right over here, and that's going to open here where I can just rename that. And then you can see here, if I want to, I can publish it as well. So now I have this page, it's renamed, but I also still have this 3, I don't need it. And I also know I don't need this page, and I also know that I don't need this discussion template page. So I can actually go through and I can check all these ones that I know that I absolutely don't need. And then instead of deleting them one by one, I can actually just choose delete the selected items. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete these 3 things? Because once they're gone, right? And I can say, yes, I know for sure I don't need those. And now all 3 of those items have been deleted. So that's kind of like again, kind of a quick overview of the different sections in TidyUp. I think one of the greatest things for us with TidyUp is it's so easy to use. It's so self-explanatory. It's right up front. All of the options are right there. You don't have to kind of be like, oh, how do I delete files? Pretty easy to figure out how to delete the files. And again, like I said, for us, when we're doing the reviews, it's so much easier for the faculty to work with their content in these smaller chunks than kind of having that overwhelming look from just the files area and having to remember like, oh, where is that file? What was I doing with it? Is it used? Is it not used? So again, having that ability to see where it's used and like I said, for my files that are used, where they're at in my course is so helpful because then I know if I removed this file, say not through TidyUp, but on accident through my file section, I now would have broken links on all of these pages, right? So that's one of the great things here again, is it tells you if you want to remove that, you're going to need to go and make sure that you're addressing these pages first before you remove that file. So again, you're not creating some unintended consequences. So again, overall, that's how we use it. Again, pretty straightforward. The way it was designed and all of the reasons that Christopher's team, thought about what they wanted to use it, it is exactly how we have used it and what we've found very helpful about it as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that have come up. I'll kind of turn it back to Mike. I'll leave it up here so you guys can, if you have questions, I can address them.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so far there are no questions in the question queue, so I remind everyone, please put your questions there. Or like I said, we have a small enough group. If you want to raise your hand, we can, oh, there is one. Okay, so Steve asked, if I renamed a file that is used in a page or multiple pages, will the image link still work in each page?
I can tackle that one. I think and Chuck or Ludo that have helped develop this, feel free to chime in, but images or files are generally linked to in Canvas using a unique file ID. And so you can change the name of a file without breaking any links. Pages are different, however. And so if you do change the name of a page, then links to a page would be broken. And so you might use this in harmony with the check the validate links feature that's in Canvas. Hopefully all of you know about that. Anna, could you just maybe open up settings in a new tab there in your course? This is one we recommend everybody use as well, that validate links in content right there. Thank you, Anna. That if you ever click on that, sometimes we click on that before and after just to make sure that the tool itself is solid and is not deleting anything that shouldn't be deleted. There were some things in the early development, right, or that may have come up a little bit, but that just doesn't happen anymore. But if you do change name of pages, then you will need to update those links. The good thing is, though, you can see where it's linked to from TidyUp, which is something that, again, was difficult to do otherwise. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Christopher. Brittany asks, when you click on a used in link, she's asking to confirm this, it'll pull you to that page of content. Is that correct? Yep, I see Anna nodding her head.
Here's an example again. Here's this image, right? I get that preview when I hover over that image. It's that little kind of like screenshot there. It might be kind of hard to see. But if I click on one of these page, then it's going to take me over and you can see that's where that image is being used on that page.
Excellent. So Steve has a follow-up question to the first one that he asked. He said, you deleted an unused image file with the same name as the one that was used. Can you show the view of the files? Was that file in a different folder?
Yeah, so I do, I actually did have them in different folders. So if I go into my files area, I have the images, and obviously I deleted one of the images, so you won't see it now, but one of the images I believe was here, this HP1, and then the other one that you don't see anymore was in this file that obviously, so they were in different folders originally, but when I was looking at them, because they had the same file name, they showed up next to each other in the list of files.
And Anna, can you go back to TidyUp? I just want to show one thing. Another kind of frustration we've had with the Canvas files area is that you can search for files in Canvas, but you have no idea where that file lives, what folder it's in. And so a nice feature that's been added to TidyUp here, if you hover over the name of any of those images, you could just hover over one, Anna, you can see there at the very bottom, it shows the path to where that file lives in Canvas. And so sometimes you just want to find out where the heck a file is when you've got hundreds of files especially. And so that's really nice. And then again, if you have two images, you could quickly just hover over each of those images and you would see then that they're in different folders, likely is the case. And that may help to decide if it's worth deleting or not. The other thing there that's just super nice, I can't remember if you went over this, but if you identify, you can review those files one at a time. But if you go to your unused files, there is a little checkbox there that often is the case. And if you just undo that search, maybe just delete that HP real quick, you can just select that checkbox at the top, right next to file name right there. And you can just delete all the unused files in one fell swoop. And even though it does give you that warning that they're gone, a couple of great features that are in there. You can download them all, as was mentioned, I think. Or Canvas has kind of an undocumented feature where you can go to the course URL /undelete, and often those deleted files will show up there, but that's an unsupported, so you can't count on that. And that's where it's nice that you can download them, or often those files exist in 50 other courses, the previous ones that were taught as well. So that's a concern that comes up sometimes if people are going to lose their files. But there's a few checks in place to help you out with that.
Excellent. Another question here from Steve. If I want to save a copy of files before I delete them, do I have to do that before I start deleting? Or is there a way to ask for archiving or download in the deletion process?
Yeah, you would have to download them beforehand, like Christopher was mentioning. You would select all of them and do this download. That's going to give you a zip file of all of those folders, or excuse me, all of those items. Or if you deleted them, then you could potentially use that undelete feature that is an unsupported Canvas feature to try and pull them back at that point. I don't know, Christopher, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I don't think so. That's exactly right. The other thing that sometimes, if somebody's really nervous about it, you could export the full course if you wanted to and just have that available. The other place where they're often available, those files, is in your beta instance of Canvas. That updates every 2 weeks. And so anything that was done, at least in that time frame, you can also find in that beta. Again, in the earlier versions of the tool, we had to lean on some of these, just if files were accidentally deleted. But the beautiful thing about the tool and the way it's been built is you can't actually delete a file that's in use in TidyUp. It's just not an option to do that. That's been kind of removed from users, so they can't accidentally delete files. They would need to unlink the file and then delete it if they wanted to delete a file that was in use. So sometimes it's an iterative process where you may have old pages that are linking to files that aren't in use. So you might go through and delete files, but then go and delete pages, and then you see, oh, there's actually more files I can now delete once those pages have been deleted as well. And so you may run through the tool a couple of times to really get it in tip-top shape. But you can use any of those tools on their own as well.
Yeah. And I think too, like I was mentioning before, we do a course review process. And so we, let our faculty know everything that's in your Canvas course is fair game for that review process. And that includes for accessibility review. And so the more files and Canvas content pages and those kinds of things that you have, then all of those are getting checked for accessibility. And then those are all potentially pieces that you would have to remediate. So it gives them another lens to be looking at all of the content that they have. Like, do I really need all of those, you know, copies of PDFs, or can I move that content to a Canvas page, which usually is a little bit easier to make accessible than, say, a PDF document that they may have had as a holdover from before. So it's really helped us to actually encourage faculty to move content into the course and into the Canvas pages for accessibility purposes, and then obviously just helps with course flow and students being able to interact with the content in different ways, and sometimes easier ways, because it doesn't require as many resources or a separate program or those kinds of things. So there's been some other kind of maybe unintended consequences that were really helpful for us with using TidyUp as well.
One thing I'll just mention too, we again, our Canvas data person runs a report every semester of courses with the most files in them. And we've had a number of files in the thousands, or a number of courses within the thousands of files in them. And there is no better feeling, and maybe it's a personality thing, but I have absolutely loved to go in and delete like thousands of files from a course, you know, in just one fell swoop. And it just feels, I don't know what to equate it with, but it's as if you could take your junk drawer at home and maybe just throw it out and have only the helpful, useful things that you'll need in the future stay, right? It's kind of a la magic cadabra feeling. It just is and a lot of faculty really enjoy doing that as well.
Mm-hmm. And then again, too, I will also say the flip side of that is that if you are using YouDoIt and you're familiar with YouDoIt, and you know, I know Mike mentioned earlier there's a webinar on March 11th about YouDoIt. So if you're not familiar with YouDoIt, definitely come back and check out that product. The more you have, the longer it takes to run the scans in YouDoIt as well, right? Because remember, it's scanning all of that information that's in your course. And we found that also using YouDoIt is kind of an iterative process, right? You fix some things and then you go back and scan again, and you fix some things and you go back and scan. And so by deleting out all of the stuff that you know you aren't using kind of in that one fell swoop, then going and running your YouDoIt, it's reducing on the time and reducing on the items that you have to reiterate or remediate, excuse me, in YouDoIt as well. So the tools really work well together to help reduce a lot of time and potentially extraneous effort on the part of the faculty members or the instructional designers or whoever's working to kind of clean up these courses or make them fully accessible.
Just to add to that, we happen to use Ally currently as well as YouDoIt a little bit, but just deleting the unused files out of a course will often significantly increase that accessibility score. Again, you're just getting rid of a lot of older, inaccessible stuff that you don't need to care about. And that's just made that process a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. And the kind of last thing I'll say about accessibility too is that it's also encouraged faculty to really do a more critical look at the actual types of files that they're using in their class, and realizing that they may have created that file before because it was at the time what was most accessible, especially for some of those older files. But now with the ability with Canvas pages and other tools that are available in Canvas, that maybe having that PDF is not the most accessible way for students to access it or interact with it. And so now they're getting into the habit of just creating items straight as Canvas pages instead of making them in some other product and then bringing them into Canvas.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna and Christopher, for that further elaboration there. Steve made the comment that he's looking at TidyUp because of precisely that issue. They don't want to have to update stuff for accommodation purposes that is not being used. So it definitely helps in that regard. So let me ask two questions that no one's been brave enough to ask yet. One is, and I'll address the pricing question here in a minute, but for the two of you, can you talk a little bit about how you thought about implementing this to your faculty? Was there training? Did you roll it out slowly? Did you just make it available all at once? Any comments on kind of your rollout strategy?
So for us, we started with, as part of, we had what's called a Design to Align camp is what we called it. But really it was just a workshop that was focused on designing to be in alignment with that course design rubric. And we had that first camp in the summer, right as we were just getting access to TidyUp. And so that was our first opportunity to kind of demo it to our faculty and have them use it as part of the design process. And so that was when we first introduced it to them, and everybody really loved it. And now it's part of one of our standard steps in our design process. So any faculty member that goes through any type of course review or works with an instructional designer, it is one of our identified steps in the review process and in the design process. And then we also have what we call a state of distance education webinar that we do for all of our online faculty once a semester. And at that webinar, we actually go through and list, like, here's all the tools that are available to you and that you have access to, and that you can get additional help with if you come to our distance education center, and like if you need help or whatever. And so we give training on all of those through that mechanism as well. And of course we have on our website, all of our tools, all of that kind of stuff. So we kind of hit it from everywhere we can tell faculty about it. We tell them about it. And it's really, it's listed in all of our materials as an accessibility tool. And so we really, really are emphasizing the use of it as an accessibility tool to help with meeting all of those different needs that we already discussed.
Thanks. We've done a lot of this same thing as part of our new course development process. We just made it available to all faculty right away with, we put up a banner ad in Canvas to kind of help people know about it and start using it. But then I think one of the more effective things we've done is we do get that report to kind of identify those who are maybe drowning in the sea of files a little bit more than others. And we just reach out to them sometimes proactively and say, hey, here's a link to a tool that may help you out a little bit. You're welcome to try it on your own, or let us know if you need help. And that kind of piques the interest. And then from there, they'll often maybe go and use it in other tools, in other courses as well. But getting people to know about, faculty to know about all the available tools is always a challenge. And why we're still at 40% of those files that are, or 60% unused, which is better than 75%, but we've got a ways to go.
Excellent. Well, thank you for answering that question for me. Okay, so the question always comes up around pricing. So like all of our tools, we price our tools based on, so we size the organization by your FTE count, or if it's just a department that's adopting the tool, by the, kind of the enrollment within that department. But we have several tiers of pricing that are enrollment bands. Basically, the price for TidyUp starts at $1,000 for 0 to 1,500 FTE, and it can go as high as 14,200 something for a really, really big school. I think that covers 100,000 FTE or something like that. So as you can see, it's it's our least expensive tool that we offer. It really is a nice complement to Design Plus or to some of the other tools that we offer. And we even offer discounts, kind of off the top discounts for Design Plus customers. So if you're already using Design Plus, it'll be even cheaper for you based on that range that I just gave. So hopefully that gives you a sense of the price involved. We do also charge a little bit of money up front for a setup and training fee. There does include a setup appointment where we'll help you install the LTI tool and configure it for you. And then Michelle, who's one of the panelists here, you might be able to see her here. She will go through and train your team up with an hour session of walking through the the tool and all the things you can do with it. So with that, I will extend one last invitation for questions. And if we don't hear anything, then we can probably go ahead and wrap this up. Excellent. So looks like no further questions. We have recorded today's session. We'll be sure to follow up with a recording that you can share with others at your campus. And if you want to try the tool out and you don't already have a Sandbox account, please go to cidilabs.com and fill out our Sandbox request form, or just shoot us an email at info@cidilabs.com, and we'll set up an instance of Canvas sub-account with the tool activated where you and your team can try it out and play with it there. And if you have any other questions, by all means, feel free to contact us there as well. So again, thank you, Anna and Christopher, for joining us today. We appreciate your participation, and we look forward to further contact with those of you who attended. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all. Appreciate that. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.